On July 11, 2022, 71-year-old Margaret Barnes, who had lived in Birmingham, England, had decided to make the 115-mile trip to the Welsh town of Barmouth, a picturesque seaside town popular with tourists, for a small getaway, and to visit friends who lived in the area. Whilst here, she was due to be staying at the Wavecrest Bed and Breakfast on Marine Parade, accommodation that was wedged between a mix of other holiday properties and private homes. Similar to the surrounding buildings, it would be clear to see why somebody not familiar with the area may get them mixed up. When Margaret arrived to the B&B that warm summer's day, she was caught on CCTV entering the property with her small black suitcase in hand. Hobbling as she walked, it was clear to see the fragility of the elderly lady, who was not steady on her feet. Mainly due to her age, but accompanied by the fact that she had been seen in local bars beforehand, having a drink. Once inside the property, Margaret went up to her room, where she had stayed for the rest of the night. She had planned to get some much-needed rest before starting her holidays. The only problem was that this was not Margaret's B&B, and the elderly lady had accidentally entered the private home of a resident just doors away from where she was supposed to be staying. The home was called Belmont House, and belonged to 45-year-old bank worker, David Redfern. That night, David had been out drinking with his partner Nicola. He had drank 6 or 7 pints and a gin and tonic before returning home and falling asleep while watching a show on TV. Around 40 minutes after arriving home, David and his partner went up to bed. It was here that they were alarmed to find Margaret semi-naked and lying in their bed. She was sat up with a drink of gin and tonic in one hand and a cigarette in another. Her black travel case lay open on the floor, and her false teeth sat on the bedside table. David immediately called the police and calmly asked officers to come and remove her, but things soon took a turn for the worst, when an argument broke out, and David took the law into his own hands. Standing at 6 foot 1 inches, the 21-stone man dragged the frail pensioner from the bed, and down the stairs by the heels of her feet, before flinging her and her suitcase out into the street. All the while, she could be heard saying, "I'm sorry." He also then used excessive force to kick and stamp on the pensioner, causing her fatal injuries by breaking 3 of her ribs and causing a catastrophic and unsurvivable injury to her liver and extensive internal bleeding. David then mocked Margaret as she began complaining of chest pains. He later denied hearing her calling him a liar with her last breaths, as he explained to the 999 operator that he had mistaken her for a thief. The much-loved wife, mother, and grandmother died on the pavement outside, calling out for her son and husband of 56 years. Neighbors of David's heard the commotion and rushed to Margaret's aid, with attempts to resuscitate her, but with no success. One of the witnesses called emergency services, and the recording was later played in court, where he could be heard telling the operator, "All I have done is eject her from my house. There's nothing wrong with her, she's a thieving cunt." When police arrived to the scene, David asked detectives, "How would you react to someone breaking into your house and sitting in your bed? If there's an instruction manual about it, please share it with me." David was arrested but denied murder or manslaughter. He told his partner Nicola, "I didn't mean to kill her." She replied, "You could have just escorted her out. It's an old lady." Later that day, police knocked on the home of Margaret Barnes's husband Raymond, and delivered the heartbreaking news that his wife had passed away. In a statement read in court, Raymond said his wife had left school at 15 and had been a Cadbury's packer for some 25 years. She enjoyed needlework and dancing. The couple had holidayed abroad, including in China and Cape Verde, and Raymond spoke of how his wife had a large group of female friends. Their daughter Natalie Barnes read a victim impact statement to court, describing her mom as a person who loved the little things in life. When the 2-week trial began at Carnarvon Crown Court, David Redfern showed no remorse, attempted to blame Margaret for his actions, and subjected her family to the trauma of a 2-week trial, where details of the event were explored in graphic detail. David said he had been petrified and scared upon discovering Mrs. Barnes in his bed, and claimed he ushered her outside with a bear hug. He told police in interviews that Mrs. Barnes had been aggressive and had lunged at his partner. The court heard that Margaret's injuries were similar to the blunt force trauma expected in a high-speed road crash. Prosecutor Michael Jones said.
The reason Mrs. Barnes died is she had the misfortune of coming across a man who was an angry bully.
The jury took 20 hours to reach a verdict, and David was found guilty of the murder of Margaret Barnes, handing him a mandatory life sentence for murder, with a minimum of 14 years before parole. Mr. Justice Charles Bourne told the defendant, "I accept you must have been very shocked to find a stranger in your house, your bedroom. But your reaction surpasses anything that any reasonable person could imagine. You are a large and strong man, aged 45 at the time. She was small and slight, at least 25 years older than you, clearly affected by alcohol and unsteady on her feet. I can understand why you might have escorted her out of your house, though a different person might have responded to this situation by trying to help her. But the assault, a kick or stamp of sufficient force to cause a fatal injury, was a dreadful thing to do to a defenseless elderly person." Raymond Barnes has since said of his wife's killer's sentence, "We now have some sort of closure on what has happened, however no length of sentence will ever fill the void that Margaret has left behind." Thanks for watching. If you want to see more videos, please like and subscribe to support the channel.